I 35F, work as an investment analyst and I'm quite successful at what I do. Growing up with an older sister, 38F, I learned early that if I wanted something, I'd have to work for it myself. The difference in how our parents treated us was striking from day one. When Victoria got her first car at 16, it was a brand new Volkswagen Beetle with a big red bow on top. When my turn came, I got Dad's old Honda with 150,000 miles and a tendency to break down. Victoria has always been the golden child in our parents, both late 60s eyes. She was the pretty one, the social butterfly, the one who could do no wrong. She married her husband Nathan, 39M, right after college, and they quickly started having kids. Now they have 3, Charlotte, 8F, Lucas, 5M, and Andrew, 2M. They live in a rental apartment that Victoria constantly complains about. I've been more fortunate in my own way. My best friend's parents own several properties and have been renting me a nice one-bedroom apartment at half the market rate for the past 5 years. They trust me because I've never given them a reason not to. While Victoria got everything handed to her, I learned to be careful with money. I've been saving religiously since I started working, living below my means, cooking at home instead of eating out, taking public transport when possible. My colleagues often tease me about being too frugal, but I had a plan. College years were another stark example of the disparity. Victoria attended her dream school with our parents covering every expense, tuition, room and board, even a generous monthly allowance. Meanwhile, I spent my senior year of high school applying for every scholarship I could find, staying up late to maintain my perfect GPA, knowing it was my only shot at higher education. Remote work became more common at our firm after the pandemic, and I only need to come to the office for important meetings. A peaceful country house seemed perfect. Last week, I finally opened my savings account and really looked at the numbers. After years of careful planning and saving, I had enough for a down payment on a modest house. I was in the middle of browsing real estate listings when my mother called with her usual perfect timing. "Don't forget we're expecting you for dinner on Saturday," she said, her voice carrying that subtle tone of command disguised as a reminder. "Victoria and Nathan are coming with the kids, and please try to be on time for once." I arrived at my parents' suburban house at exactly 5:05 p.m. that Saturday. Their driveway was already full with Victoria's minivan, forcing me to park on the street. Inside was the usual chaos, kids running around while my mother fussed over everyone like it was a state dinner rather than our regular family gathering. My father had already settled into his favorite chair with his newspaper, a position he'd maintain until dinner was served. The standard dinner complaints floated around, Nathan about his demanding boss and impossible project deadlines, Victoria about their cramped apartment and the children's endless needs, Dad about the economy and gas prices. Mom kept adding to the noise with constant remarks about everyone's eating habits and portion sizes. During these dinners, I'd perfected the art of mental escape. I took advantage of the chaos to check my phone under the table, looking at a perfect little cottage I'd found, 2 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen, and a gorgeous garden. The price was right in my range. The listing photos showed a charming wraparound porch with space for rocking chairs, and the thought of sitting there with my morning coffee made me smile. "What's so interesting on that phone?" "You barely touched your food," Mom noticed, her hawk eyes never missing a thing despite the chaos. I could have made up something about work, but maybe it was the warmth of the fantasy still lingering in my mind that made me decide to be honest. "Actually, I'm looking at houses. I'm thinking about buying one soon." The silence that followed was so complete you could hear the ice cubes settling in the water glasses. Even the kids sensed something had changed. Charlotte stopped mid-chatter about her school play, Lucas froze with his fork halfway to his mouth, and even little Andrew stopped banging his spoon on his high chair. Victoria's head snapped up so fast I thought she might get whiplash. Nathan's endless complaints about his boss died mid-sentence. My mother's hand paused in the act of reaching for the salt shaker, and my father's newspaper lowered slowly, like a curtain revealing his surprised face. "Buy a house," Mom repeated, as if she hadn't heard me correctly. "You?" "Well, yes," I said, already regretting my candor. The way they were all staring at me made me feel like I'd announced plans to colonize Mars. "I'm just looking at options right now, nothing definite." "What kind of house?" Victoria asked, her voice carrying that oddly sharp tone she used when she felt threatened. It was the same tone she'd used when I got a better SAT score than she did, right before she convinced our parents I must have cheated. I haven't really decided yet, I said vaguely, trying to redirect the conversation. But I could feel the wheels turning in their heads, unspoken thoughts almost visible in the air. My parents exchanged those meaningful looks they'd perfected over decades of marriage, while Victoria kept shooting glances at Nathan, who suddenly seemed fascinated by his mashed potatoes. The usual dinner chaos eventually resumed, but something had shifted. The conversation felt forced, like actors who'd forgotten their lines but were trying to continue the play anyway. Even the kids seemed to pick up on the tension, their usual boisterous behavior subdued. A week later, my phone started buzzing with Mom's calls during an important Zoom meeting. After her third attempt, I finally called back during my lunch break, expecting some kind of emergency. Finally. Mom burst out, her voice practically vibrating with excitement. I found the perfect house for you. Martha from church told me about this listing in her neighborhood. It's absolutely ideal. I put down my half-eaten sandwich, already feeling a headache forming. Mom, I haven't even asked for help finding a house. But she was already in full swing, impossible to interrupt. It has 5 bedrooms, no, 6. The master bedroom is huge, and there are these adorable children's rooms with built-in closets. Oh, and the backyard, there's already a playground installed. Can you believe it? And the location is just perfect, walking distance to St. Mary's Elementary School and the public library. I massaged my temples, trying to stay calm. Mom, I appreciate you thinking of me, but that's not what I'm looking for at all. I want a small country house, something cozy just for me. I don't need multiple children's rooms or a playground. Don't be ridiculous, she snapped, her excitement instantly turning to irritation. You can't just think about yourself. You need to plan ahead. This house is perfect, Martha says the owners are motivated to sell quickly. After she hung up, Victoria started sending an endless stream of listings for massive family homes. Each new message brought another 4 to 6 bedroom house with multiple bathrooms, huge yards, all near schools and parks. After the 20th message, I stopped checking. It was clear they weren't listening to what I actually wanted. Instead, I called Amanda Chan, a realtor with excellent reviews. During our first meeting, I was struck by how she actually listened. I want something small and cozy, I explained. A country house, not too far from the city, with good internet for remote work. Maybe a small garden where I could grow herbs and vegetables. When I told her my price range, her eyes lit up. I think I might have exactly what you're looking for. It just came on the market yesterday. The house she showed me was perfect, a charming 2-bedroom cottage 40 minutes from the city. White siding, dark green shutters, and a wraparound porch with space for rocking chairs. Inside, sunlight streamed through large windows into an open-plan living area. The kitchen wasn't huge but had been updated with butcher block countertops and new appliances. A wood-burning fireplace dominated the living room wall, and I could already imagine cozy winter evenings spent reading beside it. Upstairs were 2 modest bedrooms and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub that made me fall in love immediately. But it was the sunroom that sealed the deal, windows on 3 sides overlooking a well-tended garden with raised beds and a small greenhouse. I could already see myself spending weekends there, surrounded by plants and natural light. The owner offered a quick closing discount, and I didn't hesitate. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork and preparations. I put down a larger down payment than required to keep the monthly payments comfortable, using the money I'd been carefully saving all these years while my family probably thought I was just being cheap. After everything was finalized, I decided to share my news at the next family dinner. Mom had just started talking about another house. Barbara next door is selling, she'll give us, I mean you, a good price. Actually, I interrupted, unable to contain my excitement despite their previous attempts to influence my decision. I've already bought a house. The silence was absolute. Even the usually unstoppable Charlotte froze mid-motion. I took a deep breath and started describing my new home, my voice filled with enthusiasm despite the growing tension around the table. It's this beautiful cottage about 40 minutes outside the city. 2 bedrooms, the most amazing sunroom, and there's even a small greenhouse in the backyard. The previous owner had these gorgeous raised garden beds and my father's fist crashed onto the table with such force that the water glasses jumped. "Are you out of your mind?" he roared. I'd never seen him this angry before. Andrew started crying at the sudden noise. "How dare you buy a house without consulting us first?" My mother's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "After all those perfect family homes we found, why would I need to consult you about buying my own house with my own money?" I felt like I'd stepped into some bizarre alternate reality. Because we had it all planned out. Mom was practically screaming now. Barbara's house would have been perfect. Right here in the neighborhood, plenty of room for everyone. Room for everyone? I repeated slowly, feeling increasingly confused. "It's just going to be me living there." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged looks while Victoria sat there with an eerily calm expression. Nathan suddenly became very interested in his plate. "Actually," Mom said in a tone that made my blood run cold, "the plan was for Victoria, Nathan, and the kids to live there with you." I waited for the punchline. It didn't come. Victoria nodded as if this was perfectly normal. "We're so cramped in that apartment. Your house would give us all the space we need. And since we wouldn't have to pay rent or utilities, we could finally start saving money." I looked around at their dead serious expressions, Dad's stern disapproval, Mom's righteous anger, Victoria's entitled expectation, Nathan's awkward avoidance. Years of memories flooded back, every time Victoria got what she wanted while I worked twice as hard for half as much, every time my achievements were dismissed while her smallest accomplishments were celebrated. "You all just assumed I would buy a house for Victoria's family to live in?" "Well, of course." Mom threw up her hands like I was being deliberately obtuse. "That's what family does. This isn't helping, this is expecting me to house 5 people without even asking me." "You're being selfish," Victoria's calm facade finally cracked. "The kids have to share rooms, Andrew's crib is in our bedroom. It's not fair to them. You need to cancel this ridiculous purchase immediately," Mom demanded, her voice sharp with the authority she'd wielded over me for 35 years. "Barbara's house is perfect, right in the neighborhood." "No." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. The word came out stronger than I expected, carrying the weight of decades of pent-up frustration. Chaos erupted. Mom jumped up waving her arms, Dad's voice boomed, kids started crying. "But we'll be so cramped." Victoria wailed like I hadn't spoken at all. "Charlotte has ballet, Lucas has soccer. You're not going to be cramped anywhere because you're not living in my house. None of you are. Ever. Is that clear enough for you?" They stared at me like I'd grown a second head, the entitled shock on their faces almost comical. "How can you be so cruel to your own sister?" Mom clutched her pearls, her voice trembling with dramatic outrage. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, their voices rising behind me in a chorus of demands and accusations. I couldn't listen to another word. I got in my car and drove home in a daze, their entitled expectations still ringing in my ears. Update 1, the aggressive pounding on my apartment door started while I was packing the kitchen. The coffee mug I was wrapping in newspaper slipped from my hands but thankfully landed on a pile of packing paper. "Open this door right now," my father's voice boomed through the wood. "We know you're in there." I froze, bubble wrap still in hand. More pounding followed. "Go away." I shouted back. "I'm not discussing this anymore. Don't you dare talk to us like that." Dad's fist made the door rattle in its frame. "We raised you better than this." My hands were trembling as I picked up my phone. "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. I mean it." I pulled up the keypad and deliberately pressed numbers, making sure they could hear the beeps. "I'm dialing right now." Dad's curse was cut off by Mom's sharp intake of breath. "We'll leave," Mom's voice had turned cold as ice. "But this isn't over. You're making a terrible mistake." I listened to their footsteps retreating down the hallway, then slid down against the wall, my heart pounding. An hour later, the first message from Victoria came, a photo of Charlotte and Lucas cramped together on their shared bunk bed. Look how little space they have, the caption read. Charlotte can't even have a desk for homework. When I didn't respond, another photo followed, Andrew's crib wedged into the corner of Victoria and Nathan's bedroom. He wakes up every time we come to bed. This isn't fair to him. As I continued to ignore her, Victoria's messages turned nasty. They started coming at all hours, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m. You always were Dad's least favorite. Mom cries herself to sleep because of you. I hope you're happy all alone in that big house while your nieces and nephews suffer. I blocked her number, then her Facebook, then her Instagram, but she kept finding new ways to reach me, creating new accounts, using Nathan's phone, even setting up fake email addresses. Then the phone calls started coming from other directions. First, it was Aunt Marie. Sweetie, I just heard what's happening with your sister. Surely you can find it in your heart to help family? Next came Uncle Bob. Kid, you need to think about what really matters here. Family comes first. My mother's best friend Susan, your mother is devastated. How could you do this to your own family? Even my old high school teacher Mrs. Peterson, whom my mother still saw at church, I always thought you were such a kind student. I'm so disappointed to hear about this situation with your sister. They all had the same message: I was selfish, heartless, cruel. I should give up my house, my dreams, my independence to solve Victoria's problems. None of them seemed to question why Victoria's housing situation was somehow my responsibility. After 2 weeks of constant harassment, I'd had enough. I went to my mobile carrier and changed my number, giving it only to my workplace and a handful of trusted friends who hadn't taken sides in this mess. Moving day was wonderfully quiet. I hired a moving company I'd never used before, making sure there was no way for my family to track my new address through familiar local services. The movers were efficient and professional, and by sunset, I was standing in my new living room, surrounded by boxes and possibility. That first night in my cottage, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, listening to the crickets and watching the stars come out. No traffic noise, no sirens, no family drama, just peace. I felt something inside me finally relax, a tension I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying for years. Now I occasionally see their social media posts, Victoria's passive-aggressive status updates about family betrayal and selfish siblings, Mom's thinly veiled posts about ungrateful children and family duty, the comments from relatives and family friends all taking their side without knowing the full story. But here's the thing, none of it bothers me anymore. Their words can't touch me in my new sanctuary. I've transformed the second bedroom into a home office, setting up my monitors to face the window where I can watch birds visit the feeder I installed. The previous owners' raised garden beds now burst with herbs and vegetables, my first attempt at gardening turning out surprisingly successful. For the first time in my life, I'm living entirely on my own terms, and it feels absolutely liberating. Update 2, something unexpected happened today. Remember that big investment project I'd been working on remotely from my new home? It paid off, massively. My boss called me into a virtual meeting to tell me I not only earned a substantial bonus but was being considered for a director position. The peace and focus of my new environment had allowed me to excel at work in ways I never imagined. Without constant family interruptions and emotional drain, I found myself proposing innovative strategies and taking on leadership roles naturally. This success brought an interesting development. Victoria's apartment complex was sold to a developer planning to convert it into luxury condos. All tenants received eviction notices with a 60-day window to vacate. Through the family grapevine, I learned Victoria and Nathan were struggling to find a new place within their budget. The timing couldn't have been better. My promotion comes with a significant salary increase, and I decided to use my bonus to put a down payment on a beautiful vacation property in the mountains. It's an investment, really, property values in that area have been skyrocketing. Today, I received a carefully worded email from Nathan, not Victoria, interestingly. He explained their situation and asked if I would consider discussing housing arrangements again. The old me might have felt guilty, might have considered helping despite everything. But I simply forwarded them some local apartment listings within their budget and wished them luck in their search. Mom tried a different approach. She showed up at my office building, I guess she got the address from LinkedIn, with tears in her eyes, talking about how she and Dad were struggling with their retirement savings and had always counted on the family staying together to support each other in their golden years. I listened politely, then explained that my financial advisor had recommended against mixing family and financial commitments. Her face turned that familiar shade of red, but this time, in the professional environment of my workplace lobby, she couldn't make a scene. The family's social media campaign has taken an interesting turn. Now they're posting about successful people who forget their roots and sharing articles about toxic individualism in modern society. My aunt even wrote a long Facebook post about how some people let money change them, getting hundreds of sympathetic reactions. But here's what they don't know: my success has attracted attention from headhunters. I'm being courted by several prestigious firms, including one in Europe. The thought of putting an ocean between myself and this drama is becoming increasingly appealing. My new greenhouse is thriving. I've started growing exotic orchids, delicate things that require patience and attention to detail. Much like building a career or establishing boundaries, I'm learning that the most rewarding things in life take time and dedication to nurture. The local gardening group I joined has become a wonderful source of friendship. These people know nothing of my family drama, they know me only as the woman who brings homegrown herbs to meetings and asks detailed questions about soil pH levels. It's refreshing to be judged solely on who I am, not on my willingness to sacrifice my life for others' convenience. Yesterday, I hosted my first dinner party in my new home. Colleagues, gardening friends, and neighbors gathered around my dining table, enjoying good food and conversation. No one demanded anything from me except perhaps the recipe for my herb-crusted salmon. The evening was filled with laughter, intelligent discussion, and mutual respect, everything family gatherings should be but never were. As I watched my guests enjoying themselves on the porch, fireflies dancing in the garden beyond, I realized something profound: I haven't just bought a house, I've built a life. A life that's entirely my own, free from the weight of others' expectations and entitled demands. Let them post their passive-aggressive messages. Let them talk about family duty and obligation. I'm too busy thriving to care. Update 3: the final pieces of my victory fell into place today. Victoria and Nathan failed to secure a new apartment, their credit check revealed some concerning issues. They're now temporarily staying with our parents, all 3 kids crammed into the guest room. I received an official offer for that director position in our London office. The compensation package is exceptional, including a beautiful company-provided apartment in Kensington. When I announced my acceptance on LinkedIn, the professional congratulations poured in. The contrast between my colleagues' genuine support and my family's bitter silence was striking. The most satisfying moment came when Dad called, his voice lacking its usual authority. He started by asking about this London nonsense, but quickly revealed the real reason for his call. Their retirement savings had taken a significant hit in the recent market downturn. They'd apparently been counting on selling their house and moving in with Victoria's family, in the house they'd expected me to buy. "We always assumed we'd all be together," he said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "Your mother and I aren't getting any younger." I remained professional and detached, recommending an excellent financial advisor I know. She specializes in retirement planning for seniors. I'll email you her contact information. What my family doesn't know is that I've already made arrangements for my mountain property to be managed as a luxury vacation rental. The projected income is impressive, more than enough to cover Victoria's entire monthly rent, ironically. But that's not information I plan to share. Today, I hosted a farewell garden party for my local friends. The greenhouse was in full bloom, the orchids creating a stunning backdrop. As I watched my guests enjoying themselves, someone remarked how much I've changed since moving here, how I seem more confident, more at peace. Later that evening, while packing for London, I found an old photo album. There was a picture of teenage Victoria getting her new Volkswagen while I stood in the background, next to Dad's old Honda. The memory no longer stings. Instead, it reminds me how far I've come. I'm keeping my country cottage, it'll be my retreat when I visit the States. The garden will be maintained by a lovely retired couple from my gardening group, and the house will remain my sanctuary, untouched by family drama. Tomorrow, I board a plane to London. My family doesn't know yet, they'll find out when they see my social media updates from Hyde Park or the Thames. Victoria will probably post something about sisters who abandon their families. Mom will likely share articles about expatriates who regret leaving their loved ones. But sitting here in my sunroom one last time before my early morning flight, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, I feel nothing but peace. Sometimes the biggest victory isn't in winning the battle, but in choosing to leave the battlefield entirely. Let them deal with their cramped living arrangements and financial struggles. I'll be too busy enjoying my new life in London to read their social media posts. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well.